So before digging into code and see image filter in action, first we need to make sure that we all are in same page. For that exact reason, in this movie, we're gonna set up our project files. So let's start with the code editor I'm gonna use in this course. So I'm gonna use this VS Code, and VS Code is totally free, and I believe this is an amazing free code editor you can actually ever use. This is crazy good. So I'm going to use this VS Code for this course, but if you want, you can go for Atom, which is by GitHub. You can go with Bracket or Sublime Text, or maybe a simple Notepad++. Yep. You can just go with any code editor you wish, even the one you might using right now. It's totally fine. You just need a code editor. But for this course, I'm gonna use this VS Code because I love VS Code and I have already installed in my Mac. But if you haven't, don't worry, just go ahead and hit here. Right now I'm on Mac, so it's showing download for Mac, but if you're in Windows, it will show download for Windows. So just go ahead and just click on it, download it, and install in your PC or in your Mac. And once you install it, just open this editor and it will look like this. After that, create a new folder and click here to open and locate that folder. Well, in this case, I already have open here, which is exercise file. So I click here that this exercise file is almost empty. I only have these two images which we're gonna need throughout this course. So first one is the color reveal.png. I'll get back to it later in this course. And next one we have this gd1.png, which is golden retriever dog. So now let me just close it. So let's create our HTML file. Well, for that, right click here and just click this new file. Well, you can name it anything you wish, let's say index.html, but I'm gonna be more specific and I'm gonna say a CSS image filters. And this is going to be our HTML file. There we go. So now we have our HTML file. Next up, I need a folder. So I'm gonna just create this new folder, and this is going to be our CSS folder where we will put our CSS styles. So let me just collapse this, and here I'm gonna hold my shift key and press this one keyword in keyboard, and you see I get this exclamation mark. Now when I hit this tab, well, it's going to give me this HTML5 document structure. Here I'm gonna say CSS image filters. So there we go. This is going to be our document name. And next I need one important thing, and that's going to be a bootstrap. So I'm gonna just go to this bootstrap. Well, you can visit here by visiting this URL. And what I need here, I will need only this CSS file because we're gonna make use of bootstrap grid. Don't worry, we're not gonna complex. It's gonna be really super simple. So I'm gonna just go up here. I'm gonna just paste it here. There you go. Next up, we're gonna go right here. And here I'm gonna apply a class which is going to be container. This is bootstrap class, and then I can just go down and I can make use of bootstrap grid system. So I'm gonna say here dot row, which is going to be div row. Obviously I can rename it to section, which is obviously is going to be semantic, and this is going to be row. And then in one row I need 3 columns. So what I can do here is simply say call dash 4, which is going to be 4 into 3. It's going to be 12 because this boot system have 12 column grid layout. I'm going to add my this image, which is a gd1 png, right? So I'm going to say here image, and here is going to be images, and then I'm going to target this gd1.png because this is exact image I need here. Well, I can say here gd, it's, and now I have this image, but we need to see the live preview. Well, if you're using this VS Code, it's super easy. You can go to this right here and you just search for live server. Once you search for live server, I have already installed, so I don't have to reinstall again. You can simply just click on install here, and it will going to install in a code editor, and then restart your VS Code, and the live server will get installed in your VS Code. So now what you can do, you can right click here and you can see open with live server. Just click here and it will going to open this file in live server, which is right here. So let me just make it quite big here so you can see it clearly. Now we have this image, and now let me just go here, and I want 3 of them, right? So I'm gonna just copy this one and I'm gonna paste it. So twice and thrice. There we go. If I save it and if I go here, now you will see that we have these 3 images in one row, and you see these images looks quite big. So what I can do, I can go right here, and let me just go to the CSS here. I'm gonna create one file in this CSS which is going to be style.css. So I'm gonna target image, and I just need to just do one thing, which is going to be width to be 100%. and this is it. This is the only thing I want. And now what I can do is that I go here, and here I'm gonna link that style set, which is going to be css style.css. And now if I go here, you see that now we have this enough space. That's exactly what we are looking for. Now let me just go here and let me just create one more style here. So I'm gonna say filter.css this time. So it's gonna be filter.css, and this is the CSS file we are going to work throughout this course. So let me just show you what I mean here. If I go here, first I need to give it a class. So let me just give it a class of image2. So image2, and then I'm gonna copy it, I'm gonna paste it right here, and there we go. This is going to be our image3, and let's make it image1, right? So there we go, image1. And you know why these three images? Well, because we're gonna keep this original image exactly same. We're not gonna touch this original image. We only going to work on these last two images throughout this course, so we can easily compare these modified images with this original image. So we're gonna keep it untouched, and these are the two images we gonna modify or add filter, so you can easily compare this modified version of the images with this original image. So let me just go here and let me just go up, and let me actually go to this filter CSS, and first I'm gonna target this image2 and then image3 dot image3. So now we don't have to repeat it again and again, that's fine. And then I'm gonna just simply add it here, and then it's going to be CSS and it's going to be filter or CSS. So now there we go, we have done it. So image1, image2, and everything is ready. Now let me just go here, and you see that we need some space from top, so we can easily make use of this empty 5, which is margin top 5, and you see that now we have this margin 5 rem. So yep, this is our project, and this is a very simple one, and we are going to work on this project throughout this course. So here we have this simple HTML file, and then we have simple filter.css file. So yep, this is our project setup. You can easily just go ahead and download this source file from downloadable resource, and let's get to working with CSS image filter from the next movie. So the very first, we're going to talk about this grayscale filter, which allows us to convert the image to grayscale. So here's a demo. This is the original image, and this have 0% grayscale filter effect. But if I look at this second image, well, this image has 50% grayscale filter applied to it. But when you talk about this third image, well, this image have 100% grayscale filter applied to it. So if grayscale filter value is 0%, well, it will be original image, and if you apply 100%, well, it will completely turn into gray. Obviously, we'll see this grayscale filter in action, but first let me tell you that what kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this grayscale filter. So here we go, this is our grayscale function, and you can pass number or percent value as a parameter. So let me just go to my equator where I'll show you this grayscale function in action. So here I am on my equator, and we're gonna work on these last two images which have a class of image2 and image3. So let me just go here and let me just apply this filter to image2. So I'm gonna say here filter, and this is going to be grayscale. Now what happens if I don't pass any value to this grayscale filter? Well, let me just show you. If I save it and if I go here, you see this second image turned into completely gray. Well, that's because 100% is the default value for this grayscale function. Let me prove you that. So I'm going to copy this from here, and I'm going to paste it on this image3, and I'm going to apply this 100% specifically. Okay, so I'm going to just save it, and if I go here, you see that our second and third image are completely turned into gray. So you see that I haven't passed any value, so grayscale function will automatically going to put it 100%, and in third image I am specifically saying that make it 100%, so it will going to convert this current image into grayscale completely. So let me just pass here 50%, and when I pass here 50%, if I just go here, you see that now we have 50% grayscale applied to the second image and 100% on this third image. So 0%, 50%, and 100%. And let me just tell you that you can pass two kind of value as a parameter in this grayscale function. The first one is this percent, and the second one is the number. So if you want to make it 100%, well, get rid of everything and just make it 1. 1 is equal to 100% because that's a number. This is how you represent 100% in number. If you want to make it 50%, well, you need to pass here 0.5. If I go here, you will not see any difference. You see, it's again 50% and this have 100% grayscale effect. So that's pretty neat here. And again, if you want to make it 10%, well, it's gonna be 0.1. And if I go here, you see that we have only 10% grayscale applied to this second image, which is barely noticeable, but you get the idea. So let me just go here, and if you want to pass 0%, well, just make it 0. Let me just go here and see the 0% grayscale. Now let me just tell you one important thing is that this grayscale function do not accept any negative value. So if you pass any negative value, just like this -1, well, it will not work. You see this grayscale filter didn't apply to this image. That's because this grayscale filter do not accept any negative value. So make sure you pass a positive value. So let's make it 0.5. And now you see that we have this original image, then we have this 50% grayscale, and then we have this 100% grayscale. And this is how you can make your images gray using grayscale function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about sepia function in CSS image filters, which allows you to convert the image to sepia. So here's a demo. This is the original image and this have 0% sepia effect. But what happens if I apply 50% of sepia effect? Well, it will look like this. This image has 50% sepia effect. And if you go above and beyond, well, this image have 100% sepia effect. And 100% is by default and the maximum number of value you can pass into sepia function. So 0% will keep the original image unchanged and 100% will fully convert into sepia effect. Well, obviously we're gonna dig deep into code, but before, let me just tell you that what kind of value you can pass into sepia function as a parameter. So here we go. This is our sepia function and you can pass number or percentage value as a parameter inside this sepia function. So now let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this sepia function in action. So here we go, I'm on my creator and we're gonna work on these last two images which have a class of image2 and image3. So let me go to this filter CSS and here I'm gonna apply this filter property and I'm gonna say here sepia. So now if I don't pass any value and leave this parameter empty, it's going to convert that image to sepia. Well, that's because if I don't pass any value, 100% is actually a default value for this sepia function. Let me prove you that. So if I copy it and paste it into this third image, and if I just put here 100%, now if I save it, if I go here, you see that the second image and third image looks identical because they both have the same exact value, which is 100% sepia effect. In this case, I'm not passing any value, so it will automatically going to assume that you want 100% sepia effect to the current image, and in image 3 I'm passing this 100% specifically. It means that obviously you want 100% sepia effect to this current image. So in 0%, your original image will remain unchanged, and in 100%, your original image is going to convert fully into sepia effect. So now let me just go here and let's make it 50%. So if I just make it 50%, if I save it, now you see that now this have a 50% sepia effect. So 0 is the smallest and 100% is the biggest. It means that 100% means you want to apply 100% sepia effect to that image. Obviously, just like percentage, you can pass number here. So 0%, it means 0, and if you want to go 100%, well, just make it 1 and it will work. Let me just go here and you see it's exactly the same, 0% and 100%. If you want this second image to be 50%, make it 0.5 and that's 50%. Let me just go here and see 0%, 50% and 100%. So you can pass percentage or number value as a parameter to this sepia function. Also, let me tell you that the sepia function do not accept any negative value. So if you try to pass here, let's say minus here, well, that's a negative value. Well, you see this image 3 is going to actually revert back to its original place, and now this image 3 do not have any sepia effect, and that's because you passed here negative value, and sepia function do not allow to pass you negative value. So just make sure your number is in positive. So let me just go here and say it's working. So yep, this is how you can apply sepia effect on your images using sepia function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about saturate function in CSS image filters, which allows you to saturate the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image which have 100% saturation, and 100% is the default value of the saturate function. But what happens if you go below 100%? Well, in that case, you will going to desaturate that image. In this case, this image has a 50% saturation, which resulted a desaturated image. If you go 0%, it will completely desaturate it. But what happens if you go beyond 100% or over 100%? Well, you are going to super saturate the image, and this is the demo of it. So this have a 200% saturation. Obviously, we will dig deep into coding in a bit, but first let me tell you that what kind of value as a parameter this saturate function accept. So here is the saturate function, and you can pass number or percentage value as a parameter in this saturate function. So now let me just go to my equator where I'll show you this saturate function in action. So here we go, I'm on my equator, and we are going to work on these last two images, which is image 2 and image 3. So let's go to filter here and let's target our image 2, and here we're gonna use this filter property, and in this case we're gonna make use of this saturate function. Well, what happens if I don't pass any value in this saturate function? Well, if I just do that and if I go here, you see this image is remain unchanged. Why is that? Well, because by default value of this saturate function is 100%, and 100% means original image, because the only original image have 100% saturation. So let me just prove you that. So I'm gonna target this image 3, and here I'm also gonna just grab this filter and then saturate function, and here I'm gonna pass 100%. And now if I save it, if I go here, you will not see any difference in the second or third image. So 100% saturation means the original image. So now what happens if you go below 100%? Well, you're going to desaturate the image. Let me show you. If I say here 50%, then if I go here, and you will see that now this is desaturated. Even if I go lower than that, let's say I want this my third image to be have a 0% saturation. If I go here, you see it turned into complete gray, and this is fully unsaturated image. So this image do not have any saturation. So this is 0%, this is 50%, and this is the 100%, which is the original. So this is what's gonna happen if you go below 100%. But what happens if you go above 100%? Well, in that case, you will going to super saturate or ultra saturate this color. Let me show you. So if I see here 150%, which is higher than 100%. So let me just go here, and you see now you have super saturated result. Obviously you can go crazy. You can say something like a 400 or 500. So let me just say 500, and if I go here, you see this is ultra super saturated, right? Obviously you do not want that kind of saturation, but that's great for demo, right? So let's make it 200, which is a little bit realistic. If I go here, well, we can definitely want this kind of saturation. Okay, so now there's a two kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this saturate function. The first one is the percent, and the second one is the number, or you can say decimal number. So now I'm passing this 50% as a percent, but if I want that exact 50% as a number, well, I can use here 0.5. So now it's represent 50%. It's a decimal number. And now if I go here, you will not see any difference in second and third image. You see, they look exactly same because we have passed exactly the same value, but as a different kind of value. In this case, this is a percent and this is number. So if you want 200% saturation, well, you can simply say here 2, and this is going to be 200%. Okay. And now these both values are same. If I go here, second and third image look exactly the same. So you can pass two kind of value as a parameter. The first one is the decimal number, and the second one is the percent. Okay, now here's the most important thing. Saturate function do not accept any negative parameter. So if I see here -2, well, it will not work. If I go here, you see it's not working. Now it's back to its original saturation, which is 100%. Okay, so remember, do not pass any negative value because negative value don't work here. So yeah, this is all about saturate function. This is how you can saturate your image using saturate function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're going to talk about brightness function in CSS image filters, which allows you to adjust the brightness of the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image which have 100% brightness, and 100% is the default value of this brightness function. But what happens if you go beyond 100% or over 100%? Well, it will going to give you brighter result. So here's a demo. This is 150% brighter than the original one. So this is 100% and this is 150%. Now what happens if you go below 100%? Well, it will going to give you blacker result. Now in this case, this is. So this has 0% brightness. This is 100%, 150%, and this have 0% brightness, which obviously give you a full black result. Well, I'll show you this brightness function in action in a bit, but first let me show you that what kind of value as a parameter this brightness function accepts. So here's a brightness function, and you can pass number or percentage value as a parameter in this brightness function. So now let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this brightness function in action. So here I am on my creator, and we are going to work on these last two images which have a class of image2 and image3. And let me just go to this filter or CSS, and we have this image2 class and image3. So let me just target this image2, and here I'm going to use this filter property, and in this case I'm going to make use of this brightness function. So what happens if I don't pass any value here? Well, it will automatically going to assume that you want the current image brightness to be 100%, which is the original. So the original image will remain unchanged. Let me show you. So you see this second image remain unchanged because this have the 100% brightness. Let me prove you. So if I just target this image 3, and again if I make use of this filter property and then this brightness of function, and if I pass here 100%, well, again you will not see any changes because again this is 100% brightness. So this original image has 100% brightness. I passed here brightness of function, but I didn't pass any value, so it will automatically going to assume that you want 100%, which obviously remain unchanged. And in the third image, I'm saying specifically that I want 100% brightness, which is obviously going to remain the original one. So what happens if you go below 100%? Well, obviously as below you go, you will going to get as a blacker result. Let me show you. So let's say I'll go with, let's say 50%. So what do you think was going to happen? Well, you're going to see the blacker result. You see, this is a darker result. You see, it's look like this, but what happens if you go 0%? Well, it will going to completely black it out. You see, this is completely black. So if you go below 100%, you will going to get blacker or darker result. But what happens if you go above 100% or beyond 100%? Well, you're gonna get brighter result. So let me show you. If I go here and I'm gonna say here 150%, if I save it, you will see that now this result is brighter than the original image. And if I just make this third image to be 200%, well, it is going to be the brighter than all the images, which is first and 2. So this is 100%, 150, and 200% brighter. So if you go below 100%, you will get darker result. If you go above 100%, you will get brighter result. And let me tell you that you can pass a decimal number or number and a percent value as a parameter. So in this case, we are working with percent, but now you can also pass decimal number. So let me show you. This is 150%. So now what you can do, you can simply say 1.5, which is 150%. And if I go here, again, you see, this is 150%. So let me just prove you that. So I'm gonna say here 1, and then it's gonna be 5. And you will see the second and third image exactly same. See, it is exactly same because we are passing the exact same value, but the type is different. This is number and this is a percent. Okay, so if you want 200%, just make it 2, and this is going to be 200%, so let's make it 200%. If I save it, if I go here, you will see this second and third image exactly same. And let me just tell you that this brightness function do not accept negative value. So if you just try to pass any negative value, well, you see this is second image reverted back to its original because this brightness function do not accept any negative value. Okay, so let me just make it as 1.5, and if I go here, there we go, 100%, 150%, and 200%. So this is how you can adjust the brightness of your image using brightness function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about contrast function in CSS image filters, which allows you to adjust the contrast of the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image and which have 100% contrast, and 100% is the default value for this contrast function. But what happens if you go beyond 100% or over 100%? Well, it will going to give you more contrasted result like this. These have 200% contrast, which is 2 times more than this original image. But what happens if you go below 100%? Well, if you go below 100%, you will going to get this darker result. So 100% is the default value of contrast. If you go beyond 100%, you will get this high contrast, and if you go below 100%, you will get this darker result. But before showing you this contrast function in action, let me just tell you that what kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this contrast function. Well, here's a contrast function, and you can pass number or percentage value as a parameter in this contrast function. So now let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this contrast function in action. So here am I on my creator, and we are going to work on these last 2 images which have a class of image 2 and image 3. Let me go to this filter.css. I just go to image 2 and I'm going to use this filter property, and now this time we're going to make use of this contrast function. Now what happens if I don't pass any value? As I told you, if you do not pass any value here, it will automatically going to assume that this is the 100% contrast, which means our image will remain unchanged. So let me show you. You see, this is the second image and this image is remain unchanged. Well, that's because it's already have 100% contrast by default. So let me just go here and let me just copy this one, and I'm gonna paste it right here, and here I'm gonna pass 100%. And now what's gonna happen? Well, again, the third image is going to remain unchanged because again we are saying that 100% contrast rate, which is already it is, right? So that's why it's going to remain unchanged. So 100% is the default value. But what happens if you go below 100%? In this case, let's make it 0%. If I save it, you see that our third image is going to be a kind of a blackish, right? It's a darker result. It will going to make it complete black. But let me just go here and let's make it 50% contrast. So if I just do that, you see that we'll still get this blackish result. You see, this have 100% contrast, and as you go below 100%, you will get this blackish result. So what happens if you go beyond 100%? Obviously, you're gonna get more contrast. So let me show you. If I go here and let's make it 150%, right? And this is one is actually, let me make it 200%, right? If I save it, if I go here, you see that now we have more contrasted result. So this is the original image which have 100% contrast, then we have this 150% contrast, and then we have this 200% contrast, which is super high. Again, you can go crazy and you can make something like 500%. Obviously you do not want that kind of contrast. Maybe you want for some cases, but it's totally up to you. You can go as much you want. So this is extremely powerful. Just like other CSS image filter functions, you can pass 2 kind of value as a parameter, which is percent and the number. So if you want 500%, just make it 5. If you want 150, just make it 1.5. If I go here, you will not see any changes because it's remain unchanged. It's again 150% and 500%, and we have put the exact same value here. So let's make it 200%. And if I go here, okay, so this is 100%, 200%, and 500%. And again, just like most of CSS filter function, this also do not accept any negative value. So if you pass it, you see, you just lose all your filters. So that's why just make sure you do not pass any negative value here. So let me just go here. This is how you can adjust the contrast of the image using contrast function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're going to talk about invert function in CSS image filters, which allows you to invert the sample in the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image, and if I apply 50% of invert, then it will going to make it look like this kind of a blackish result, a darker result. but if I apply 100% inversion, it will going to totally invert that image. So you see it right here. Well, this is a very simple image filter function, but before digging into code, let me tell you that what kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this invert function. So here we go. This is our invert function, and you can pass number or percentage value as a parameter in this invert function. So let me go to my creator where I'll show you this invert function in action. So here I am on my creator, and this is the last two images we gonna work on, which have a class of image 2 and image 3. Let me give this filter a CSS, and let me just target this image 2 first. So it's going to be a filter, and then we're gonna make use of this invert function. Now what happens if I don't pass any value in this invert function? Well, by default it's 100%. What it means? Well, it means that it will going to invert the image. Yes, it will going to totally invert the image. Let me show you. If I just go here, you see this second image is totally inverted because 100% is the default value, and if you just keep it 0%, well, that's represent the original image. 0% will represent the original image and 100% will represent the inverted image. So let me just go here and let's make it 0%. And now if I just go to this image 3 and let me just apply this filter here, it's going to be invert, and now I just leave it off. So now image 2 is going to be 0%, which is going to be the original image, and this image 3, which is actually going to fully inverted. Actually, let me just pass here 100%, right? That would be great. So if I just go here, you see that this is 0% and this is 100% inverted. Again, if you want to play with this number, you can say just make it, let's say, 10% inverted. And if I go here, you see that this image is actually 10% inverted, but let me just actually invert it even more so you can see it clearly. So let's make it 30%, and that will, yeah, there we go. Now you can see it. So this is 30% inverted and this is 100% inverted. And just like other function, you can pass two kind of value as a parameter, the percent and the number. So 30% is a percent, but if you want to pass the exact value as a number, it's going to be 0.3, which is 30%, and this is 100%, so let's make it 1, right? And this is the number. Let me just go here and you will see the exact same result as a previous one. Okay, so 0% is the original image and the 100% is totally inverted result, and 100% is by default. And just like other functions, these do not accept any negative value. So if I just put it here minus, well, it will not going to put any effect. It will simply revert back to its original. Okay, so this function also do not accept any negative value. So yeah, this is how you can use this invert function to modify your images using invert function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're going to talk about blur function in CSS image filters, which allows you to apply a Gaussian blur effect to the image. So here's an example. This is the original image, and if I just add 5 pixel blur, it will look like this. And if I add 10 pixel blur, well, it will going to even blur the image just like this. So we will obviously gonna dig deep into coding, but before, let me just tell you that what kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this blur function. So here we go. This is the blur function, and you can pass any length. Well, it could be in a pixel, it could be in a RAM, it could be in I mean any measurement unit you want. So let me just visit to my creator where I'll show you this blur function in action. So here I am on my creator, and we are gonna work on these last two images which have a class of image 2 and image 3, and go to filter CSS. So let me just go and use this filter property, and now I'm gonna make use of this blur function. Now what happens if I just leave this empty? Well, nothing gonna happen because by default it have 0 pixel. So let me just go right here, and you see this second image remain unchanged. So for that, let me just go here and let's pass any measurement or length value. In this case, I'm gonna say 2 pixel. So 2 pixel is enough for now, and you will see a little blur right here in this second image, which is 2 pixel blur. So let me just go to here and let me just use this filter property on this third image, and this is going to be blur, and here I'm gonna say 5 pixel. And if I go here, you see this third image is even blurrer, right? So you can increase the length value as much you want, but obviously in certain parameter, because if I just add here any crazy value, this image will going to disappear completely. You see this image is actually disappeared. So that's crazy. And I think you not wanna you do that. Maybe in some scenario you wanna do that, but it's up to you. And if I add a, well, it will totally blur it out. You see, it look like a color on the spot here, right? So yep, this is actually your blur function, and you can pass any unit value you wish. You can pass as a pixel, you can pass as a RAM or AM, it's totally up to you. So let me just go with the RAM here, and 5 RAM is actually 16 into 5, 80 pixel, and it's a lot. So let me just save it, and if I go here, you see it's 80 pixel blur, which obviously we do not want it. So let me just make it 1 RAM, which is 16 pixel blur, and you still see this is actually the 16 pixel blur. So you can use this RAM, or you can also use M. So M is also a relative measurement, and obviously 1 M is equal to 16 pixel, 1 RAM is equal to 16 pixel. So you will see the second and third image exactly the same. Okay, so you can use M, RAM and pixel, or any unit you wish to use in future, right? So let's make it something like relatable, which is 2 pixel. Let's make actually 1 pixel here, and let's make this around 5 pixel, right? And if I go here, you see that now this have 1 pixel blur and this have 5 pixel blur. Obviously you can use it to add some kind of a cool effect, but it's totally up to you. And one more thing, just like most of the function, this also do not accept any negative value, so forget about it. If I add here -5 pixel, you see this is now revert back to its original. So this function do not accept any negative value. So this is how you can add Gaussian blur to your images using blur function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about a hue-rotate function in CSS image filters, which allows you to apply your hue rotation on the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image, and if we rotate hue on the color wheel on certain degree, it will going to entirely change its color. In this case, you see this become completely green. Why is that? Well, because we have rotated its hue on color wheel on certain degree. Well, I'll show you that color wheel in a bit, but you see, here's another example. I have rotated the hue on certain degree on the color wheel, and it will make it look like pink. So here's the color wheel. You see, this is the color wheel, and if I rotate it 30 degree, it will change the color of the image in this color. If we rotate 300 degree, it will make it blue. So when we rotate this hue on this color wheel, it will going to change the color of the image. So the minimum number is 0 and maximum is 360 degree. So before digging into code, let me just show you this hue-rotate function and the kind of value you can pass as a parameter in this hue-rotate function. So here's the hue-rotate function, and you can pass angle or a certain degree in this hue-rotate function. So let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this hue-rotate function in action. So here I am on my creator, and we're gonna work on these last 2 images which have a class of image 2 and image 3. Let me go to filter CSS, and here I'm gonna use this filter property. Now here I'm gonna use this hue-rotate function, and now if I don't pass any value here, well, by default it's going to be 0 degree, and in that case the original image will remain unchanged. And if I rotate it, let's say 120 degree, well, it will look like this. You see, it changed its color to be completely green. So let me actually just show you the color wheel here. So if I go here, and this is actually our images, and here's a color wheel, right? So here's a color wheel, and you see at 0 degree it look like reddish. If you go 60, it will look like yellow. If you go 120, it will look like this green. If you go 240, it will look like this blue. If you go 300, it will look like a pink, and 330 is like kind of a pinkish reddish, and then again it's back to 0. So the minimum value is 0 degree and the maximum value is 360 degree, which is by default. So I have applied 120 degree, and that's why you see it green. It is not as green as on the wheel. Well, that's because our actual color, the original color of the image, and then this green color going to merge together, and in result it's giving you this kind of color. So the color of the hue rotation is largely depend on the original color of the image. Remember it. So now I have applied here 120, so that's why it's giving me this kind of green, because it's merging this green and this color together. So if I go here, and let's pick this 240, which is going to result blue color. So if I go here, let me just copy it, and I'm gonna paste it right here and save my some time, and this time is gonna be 240 degree. So 240 degree, if I go here, it will give you some kind of a bluish color. Again, it's depend on this original color. So the original color and this color is actually combining together, and it's giving me this kind of result. So again, you can rotate your hue color on certain degree, and it will going to change the color of the image based on this rotation degree. Okay, so if you want this kind of radish, let's go for 330. So I'm gonna say here 330, and if I go here, and you see it's giving this radish color. Now let me just tell you something, that this hue-rotate function accept negative value. So it means if I say here minus 330, well, it will going to give me a totally different result, this kind of a yellowish green. So let me just show you. So this is 330 degree, and if you go minus, it will actually going to go to this 30 degree, and then it's actually going to mix this color to this original color, and it's resulting it's giving this color. So yeah, this is how you can entirely change the color of your image using hue-rotate function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about opacity function in CSS image filters, which allows you to set the opacity level for the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image, which have 100% opacity, which is by default. But if you go lower, like a 50% opacity, then it will look like this. If you go even lower, which is 10%, it will look like this. But if you go 0% opacity, then the image will completely disappear from the screen. So by now you might be thinking that what is the difference between this opacity function and the opacity property that we already using from more than a decade, which is more established and well adopted. So what's the difference between opacity property and opacity function? Well, they are exactly the same, except one simple difference, and the difference is that with the filters, means opacity function, some browsers provide a hardware acceleration for the better performance. So if you use opacity function over opacity property, some browsers will going to use a hardware acceleration for that, which will result the better and smooth performance. And you can pass number or percent value as a parameter in this opacity function. So let me go to my creator, where I'll show you this opacity function in action. So here I am on my creator, and we're gonna work on these last two images, which have a class of image 2 and image 3. Go to filter CSS, and let's modify this image 2. So here I'm gonna use this filter property, and in this case I'm gonna make use of this opacity function. So now what happens if I don't pass any value? Well, by default it's 100%. It means that if I do not pass any value, then our image will remain unchanged. Let me show you. If I go here, you see there's no effect on this image. Well, that's because it's already have 100% opacity. If you go below 100%, then it will going to decrease its opacity. Okay, so let me just go here, and let me just copy this one and save me some time, and I'm gonna paste it right here. And if I pass it 100%, you will see no difference. It is exactly the same. So if I go here, you see that this image 3 look like others, right? So there's no difference. So let me just go here, and let me just make it 50%. So now if I see here 50% opacity, now it is actually going to decrease its opacity. See, it's 50% opacity. And what happened if I just make it 10%? So let me just get rid of this 10. Now it's 10%. If I go here, now you see this have a 10% opacity. But as soon as I make it 0%, well, the image is going to be completely disappear from the screen. You see, it's gone. Again, just like majority of the function, you can pass value as a number or percentage. In this case, this is a percent, but if you want to go for number, well, 50% is going to be 0.5. If I go here, and you see, it's again look like this. You want 10%? Well, it is going to look like this. So it's going to be 0.1. And there we go. If I go here, now this have a 10% opacity. And just like other functions, this do not accept a negative value. So if I pass a negative value, that now it's revert back to its original. So the opacity filter is not applying on this image because I used this invalid argument, which is minus or negative symbol. So let me just get rid of it. Now there's also one property, that name is opacity, right? And if I make it a 0.5, which is obviously the 50%, if I just comment it out, actually they will look same. Let me show you. You see, this looks same. So what is the difference between this opacity property and in this opacity function? When again if you use this opacity function, then some browser will going to provide hardware acceleration for smooth result. So if you're working with images, go with this filter opacity function. It will going to use that hardware acceleration and give you a smooth image drawing on your screen. So yeah, this is how you can set the opacity of the image using opacity function in CSS image filters. So in this movie, we're gonna talk about drop shadow function in CSS image filters, which allows us to apply a drop shadow effect to the image. So here's a demo. This is the original image, and then we have the second image where I have applied drop shadow effect. You can see this green drop shadow effect. Here's another one, which is the third image, and I have also applied a drop shadow effect right there. In this case, this drop shadow is light brown. So you might be thinking that what is the difference between drop shadow and box shadow? Well, there's a major noticeable difference. When you use this drop shadow function, some browsers provide hardware acceleration for smooth performance. And there's another big difference between drop shadow and box shadow is that drop shadow mimics the intended object's outline naturally, unlike box shadow that treat only the box as its path. Let me show you example here. So here we go. This is the box shadow example. You see, if I apply a box shadow, it is actually going to treat this box as a path. But when I apply drop shadow, well, it is going to mimic the outline of this intended object. So this is the object, and it's actually mimicking the outline of this object and apply drop shadow right there. So this is your drop shadow and this is your box shadow. So before digging deep into code, let me just show you that what kind of value we can pass as a parameter in this drop shadow function. So here we go. This is a drop shadow function, and you can pass here length x. So this is going to be length x, then length y, then length blur, and then the color. So in length, it means you can pass here pixel, ems, rams. So now let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this drop shadow function in action. So here we go. I'm on my creator, and we're gonna work on these last two images which have a class of image 2 and image 3. So let me go to filter CSS and let me just target this image 2. So I'm gonna target here filter, and then it's going to be drop shadows function. So now if I don't pass anything here, well, nothing gonna happen because obviously I haven't passed any drop shadow values, so I need to pass it. Well, let me just tell you that you can pass the exact value you pass into box shadow property. So the very first value is going to be your x coordinate, then the next value is going to be your y coordinate, and the next value is going to be your blur, and then the color of the drop shadow. In this case, let's go with black. Okay, so I'm just writing this black here, and if I go here, you will see this 2 pixel x and y coordinate with 10 pixel blur drop shadow. Let me show you. This is actually on x coordinate. So if I make it 20, it will actually move right. Let me show you. You see, it's moving to right because the very first parameter control the x coordinate. If you want to move vertically, well, you can target this second one, and let's say I made it 20. Now it will move down, and that's your y-axis. Obviously, if I make this 200, you will see this, it's moved right here. So now this is your x coordinate, this is a y, and this is the blur. So let's make it 50, and it will going to spread like 50 pixel wide. Let me just go here and I'm gonna paste it. Now if I paste it, if I save it, if I just go here, you see, you can see it's a very subtle brown kind of drop shadow. So yep, this is your drop shadow. And let me just go ahead, copy it, and let's go to our third image where I'm gonna apply some different color. So in this case, let's go for this green here, and this time I'm going to make it 3 pixel, and let's make it 5 pixel, which is going to be very solid. It's not gonna spread much, but it will actually going to give you this glow effect here, you see. So this is your drop shadow. This is very powerful. Again, if you want to see the difference between drop shadow and box shadow, well, you're more than welcome to see it, because I'm gonna turn this property to box shadow, and now you can see the difference here. So I'm gonna just go ahead and copy this value, and I'm gonna paste it right here and save it. If I go here, you see that this is the exact same value, but this is your box shadow and this is your drop shadow. You see, there's a big difference, because box shadow treating this entire box as their outline path, but drop shadow is actually mimicking this object outline and creating drop shadow around this object. So yep, this is how you can add drop shadow effect on your CSS using drop shadow function in CSS image filters. So this movie is gonna be a very special movie, because in this movie I'm going to show you that how you can combine multiple filters together in order to create more complex visual effect. So let me show you what I mean. So this is the original image, and if you see this image, now this image has a two filter applied on it. The first one is this sepia effect, and the second one is this drop shadow effect. And even if you see this third image, well, this image has four filters applied to it: the grayscale, the contrast, brightness, and drop shadow. So yeah, you can combine multiple filters to create more complex visual effect. So let me just show you the code here, because we will definitely going to dig deep into coding and see this in action. But first, let me just give you the idea how it's look. So this is our filter property, and we have this one filter which is sepia. Then we have this white space, and then contrast, and then again white space, and then this drop shadow. So this is how you can combine multiple filters together in order to create more complex effect. But you need to make sure that all filters are white space separated. So let me just go to my creator where I'll show you this code in action. So here I'm on my creator, and this is the last two images we're gonna work on, which have a class of image 2 and image 3. So let me just go to filter and let's target image 2. So now image 2, I'm gonna use this filter property. And then we have this grayscale filter, and I have applied grayscale filter, so you will see that now this second image is going to be completely gray. But now if I want to apply more effect, let's say I'm gonna add here more contrast. So now you see that it's look like this. It's not have more contrast. I'm gonna put here contrast. So contrast is going to be 300%, and you see that I have separated with this white space. Now if I go here, you'll see that we have this gray effect, but we also have this 300% contrast, which is a lot. So let's make it 200%. So it's gonna be 2. Now this image has two filters, the grayscale and the contrast. If you want to add more brightness, you can put the space, and then you can simply say here brightness, and let's make it 1.5%. right, which is 150%. And if I go here, you see that now this image has three filters: the grayscale, the contrast, and the brightness. So let me just go here, and actually let me just get rid of it because it's really look boring. But what I can do right now is that let me just go to this image third, and I'll say here filter, and here I want to rotate its hue color, let's say 120 degree. So now if I go here, you see that now I have applied 120 degree hue rotate color. Also I want to be a little bit brighter, so let me add this brightness here. So it's going to be brightness, it's going to be 1.5%, which is 150%. You see that now we have this 150% brightness, which looks nice. And then I also need drop shadow. So what I'm going to do here, and it's going to be drop shadow. So let's add drop shadow here. And now at this time I want 3 pixel to be horizontal, or 4 pixel is going to be vertical. Then we need a blur or spread here, which is going to be 10 pixel, and the color I want here is going to be gold. Now if I just save it and if I go here, you see that now we have this gold drop shadow around this image, which is crazy, right? So we have this hue-rotate, then we have brightness, and then we have drop shadow. This is the way you can create online photo editing app. You can create some kind of a slider where you can just slide to just adjust hue-rotate, brightness, contrast, blur, and so on. Let me just show you. If I go to this here, you see this is a Canva application. And if I go to this edges here, you see there's a brightness, contrast, saturations, there's also blur, right? So you see if I add a contrast, you see my image, right? I'm adding a lot of contrast here. See the contrast, then I'm gonna also add this saturation. You see how's it gonna look? And if I want to add brightness, well, this is how I can add brightness. So yeah, this Canva photo editor is a great example of this applying multiple filters together in order to create a more complex effect. So that's it for this movie. Thanks for watching. So in this movie, I am going to show you that how you can animate your filters or visual effects. For that, let me just go to my creator. So here I am on my creator, and this is the last two images we're gonna work, which have a class of image 2 and image 3. So let me just go here, and let me just target this image 2. And here I'm gonna apply this filter, which is going to be grayscale. Well, I can choose any filter I want, but because I want to only animate it, so I chose this gray. So let me just save it, and if I go here, you see that our second image is gray. So what I want here is that when I hover over this image, it's actually revert back to its original color. So for that, let me just go here, and here I'm gonna target this image 2, on hover, and then what I want here is that when I hover on this image too, I want this filter to be none. So yes, you can pass this none value to this filter property. This is going to remove any filter this image to have on hover. So if I go here, you see if I hover this one, it's going to get rid of that filter. You see it's returning back to its original color. But again, this video is all about animating this filter. So what I want here is that when I hover over this one, it gets smoothly transition back to its original color. Well, for that, let me just go here. And then what I can do here, I can just go here and I need to add only one property, which is transition. And then I need to say here within 1 second, and that's it. If I go here and now if I hover this one, you see that it's a slowly transition back to its original color, which means it's take 1 second to get back to its original color, which is very smooth transition, you see. So let's say if I add here 3 seconds, so it will take 3 seconds to transition back to its original color. So if I go here, if I hover this one, you see 1, 2, 3. Now see it's transitioned back to this original color within 3 seconds. But this is not it. Let me show you. Let me just go here and I'm gonna say here transform. So this is the transform property, and what we can do with this transform is that we can do a ton of things. You can say scale X, means it's going to make it, wider. So let's say how wide do you want? Let's say I want here 1.2, which is 120%. And if I save it and if I go here, you see when I hover over this one, it's going to get wider. You see it's 120% wider. And now if I get rid of here, you see it's get back to here. Now let me just apply more complex effect. So what I can do here is that I'll go here, I'm gonna say add keyframes, because I'm gonna apply this animation. So it's gonna be keyframes, and the name of this keyframe is gonna be change colors, infinite something, but I'll just keep change colors. And here I just say here on 0%, just keep it normal. So it's gonna be filter, let's make it filter none, right? So nothing is gonna happen on 0%, but as soon I go to 10%, I want to change it something like, let's say on grayscale. So let's say here grayscale, and then when I go to this around 30%, then what will happen is that I want this image to be get a higher contrast. So I'm gonna say here a filter, and I want this higher contrast, so it's gonna be, let's say 1.5, which is 150%. When I go to this 50%, then what I want here is that I want that image to have sepia effect. So I'm gonna say here filter is gonna be sepia. And now when I go to this around 70%, what I need here is that I want this filter to go brighter. So it's gonna be brighter, or let's go with invert. So I want it to be invert, so just invert it. And then when I reach this 90%, then what I want is that I want drop shadow. So I'm gonna say filter and then apply drop shadow, and drop shadow is gonna be, let's say 2 pixel on x-axis, 2 pixel on y-axis, and 10 pixel blur or spread. And then we're gonna apply here color is going to be gold, right? So this is what exactly we're looking for, and let's actually make it 100%, right? Now what I can do, I can just go up here, I can grab this animation name and I can apply right here. Yes, let me show you. So I can simply say animation, and now I can just use this change color, and I want all this animation happen in 5 seconds and infinite. And now if I go here, you see that now we start seeing this animation. You see the sepia, the invert, then we have this drop shadow, then this gray, the original color, then sepia, again invert, and so on, right? So this is very powerful. And again, if you want to add some extra effect, like if you want to chain it, you can do that. Let's say here's the grayscale. So in grayscale, what I want is that okay, I forgot that color hue, right? So we can apply somewhere color hue, but I want to do something. Let's say I want this grayscale to be brighter, so I'm gonna add here brightness, and it's going to be 200%. If I save it and if I go here, you see that when we see that gray, it's going to be very bright. See, this is very brighter, the gray is super bright. You see, let me show you. You see, this is very bright. Again, you can actually just chain this multiple effect to create a more complex visual effect. Again, if you want to do something, let's say I want this to be hue-rotate, so I want to rotate its hue, let's say 120 degree. Let's do it on this last one, and I'm gonna say here hue-rotate, and this time I want to be 330 degree. And if I go here, you see that now we're having this this hue-rotate, And then if I just go here, you see that we have this hue-rotate and plus that drop shadow. So that's pretty powerful. And this is how you can actually just put animation on your visual effect. And also you can chain filter to create more complex effect.